Welcome to the fifth lecture of mixed signal IC design. In this class, we'll continue with the precision considerations of a sampling circuit. So in the previous class, we looked at one mechanism which was introducing some error to the sampled value in the whole capacitor. We'll continue our discussion by looking at the second mechanism, which is called clock feed-through, capacity feed-through. Before moving further, in the previous class, this is how we ended our previous class. In the worst case scenario, we considered that if the entire charge is coming and if the entire charge is getting injected to the whole capacitor, our Vout can be expressed in this form. And we saw that there is one term here which is which will give you a non-unity gain. Along with that, yeah, so you can probably you can see this. This is the non-unity gain, which the term coming in, and the other term is a constant offset. So we have seen that there are two errors coming in. One is gain error, and another is called as a constant DC offset. Right. And with that, we have looked at the transfer Cara. In an ideal Cara, it should be actually linear, but because of the charge injection mechanism, and because of this the DC offset here, because of this offset here, and because of the non-unity gain, your response, your input output of a sampling circuit will be something like this, right? So we have so here we have seen two problems. One is gain error, and another is the constant offset voltage. And we have actually neglected the threshold voltage related non-linearity, right? So what we do is we'll actually continue from there. So again, we are continuing the charge injection mechanism. Maybe for 10 minutes, we'll just continue this and see how the nonlinearity is actually coming into picture. So we know that the threshold voltage, we can write it as Vt naught plus gamma into under root of 2 phi f plus VSB minus this 2 phi f. This is the expression we have. Now, in this case, when you have this sample and hold circuit, we can. So this is the circuit. Now, when your body is not shorted to source, and say if your body is connected to ground, so this is your body and this is your source. So VSB. So what will be your VSB in this case? VSB will be equal to V in. Right. So if I'm connecting V in here, your VSB is equal to V in. Now with that, if I write the output voltage, as per the previous expression, what I have here is V out is V in into this term, right? I think, yeah, this term over here. This is the V out expression. Now here in place of Vt, if I plug in this entire expression, so why I'm doing that is because here we have considered Vt as a constant threshold voltage, which is the nominal threshold we have considered. But actually, if the body is not connected to source, the threshold will vary. How it will vary? If you look at this expression, it will vary as per Vt will vary depending on your Vin. So as there is a change in input voltage, your Vth also will vary. So in order to look at that, or in order to look at that as a nonlinear, I'll write this expression WCox by Ch. And here I should write the complete expression as VDD minus Vin minus. I'm just in place of Vt, I'm just inserting this entire equation there. So it is Vt not in place of plus gamma, I'll write minus gamma into this 2 phi f plus V in again plus gamma into, again inside it was minus, so I'll just I'm just opening the bracket and putting minus into minus, which is plus into the again the root of 2 phi f. This is I'm writing the expression, nothing to worry. I am just inserted the Vt expression in the previous yeah, here in place of Vt, I have included the complete expression. Now this is the expression we have. Now if you rearrange this, I can rearrange and I can write it as, I'll take V in common because I have two terms coming in. So V in into 1 plus WL Cox by Ch is one term. plus I have gamma into WL Cox by CH as the term, which will have this 2 phi f plus B in term. And again, I have one more term there, which is WL Cox by CH into yeah. So again, gamma term is along this 2 phi f. With this, I have this minus VTH naught, yeah, VT naught plus this gamma into 2 phi f. Right. So what I have done is I have just written the as it is. By open brackets, I have written this. Right. Now, this is your output expression. So I have written this is just to know that in the previous expression, here when we have written, we could say that your output there is a non-unity gain is changing. Along with that, you have constant DC offset. So there is a gain error and a constant output voltage. But now, if you look at this expression, along with those two, we can also say your there is a non-linearity introduced. But how this non-linearity is getting introduced? Because of the non-linear dependence of this VTH, right? If you look at this expression, your output is actually dependent on Vin through this non-linear expression, because you can see that Vin is actually coming under out of this this term, right? So this will definitely introduce some kind of non-linearity in the input-output Cara. Right. So if I summarize here the problems, if I summarize the charge injection discussion, I can say that this charge injection will actually give three types of errors. Three types of error. One is what we have seen as the gain error, right? Non-unity gain error, which the expected is unity, but getting a non-unity gain error. Second thing is the DC offset. These two things we have seen in the previous class also. But today, looking at this expression, you can see that there is a non-linearity coming into picture, because your output and input are now not linearly related, rather it is non-linearly related. Now, if you look at the seriousness, or if you look at the effect of these errors, these first two can be tolerated. I will say this can be tolerated, or we can actually do something actually to remove this gain error. There are mechanisms to remove the charge injection problem. There are solutions to remove the charge injection problem. Gain error is possible if there is a DC offset, and whenever you have an offset voltage getting added, which is independent of your input voltage, that is also an easy mechanism to deal with. But the last one, the non-linearity, cannot be tolerated, and this cannot be actually solved also. This is an issue. So the non-linearity coming into a chart into a sampling is actually an issue. So in first unit itself, we'll actually see how this can be. So now this cannot be completely removed. We can see what best way we can design a switch so that you can actually get rid of, or to some extent of how we can get rid of this non-linearity problem, right? So can I get your response in the chat? Are you guys listening? All right. Now, so moving on, what I'll do here is I'll just, okay. So since we have, so far we have discussed both the speed considerations and the precision consideration. So we have looked at both speed and precision. Now, since we have discussed these two things, it is better to have something in terms of a figure of merit, where through that figure of merit, we can comment on the sampling switch, whether through the figure of merit, we can actually comment about the speed and precision together, right? So of the sampling switch. So what we do now, we'll summarize the discussion of the previous two classes, right? So in the day where we discussed about speed, it was actually denoted, or it was included in the form of time constant, where we generally use this notation of tau, time constant, to denote the speed. And second thing is precision or accuracy, where if you remember, we were looking at the accuracy or precision by introducing an error band or an error voltage. And so I'll use the term delta V here. Right. Now, the figure of merit here is defined as the figure of merit for this for a sampling switch is defined as f, which is a product of the reciprocal of this speed and precision, which is 1 by tau into delta v. Right. So we have a figure of merit here now, and that is defined as 1 by tau into delta v. Now, can you tell me what should be the value of this figure of merit, whether it should be high or it should be low? What will be a desired value? Can I get some response in the chat? So if you look for high speed, what should be the value of tau? For high speed, tau should be low. Yeah, Navishri, yes, your answer is right. It should be high. The figure of merit value should be high. For precision, for high precision, delta V should be low. When these two quantities are low, naturally F should be high. So naturally, the desired value is large. Large value is what is expected or is desired. Right. Now let us look at let us bring in equations here. So tau is how can I write tau? Tau is RC. Now here in this case it is R on into CH, where R on is the on resistance of the MOSFET switch, which can be further written as 1 by mu n Cox W by L into VGS minus VT, which can be again written as VDD minus V in minus VT. This is your R on into CH. So CH, I'll leave it as it is. Right. Now, what is delta V? How can I write delta V? Delta V is the error band there. So delta V, in our cases, now we were talking about charge injection. So charge injection is actually due to the charge injection mechanism, and delta V voltage is actually getting added to the sampled data value or to the whole capacitor. So we can, if you assume complete charge injection, we can write delta V as WL into Cox divided by the whole capacitor value CH into VDD minus V in minus VT. This is the delta V. Now, with these two, we can get figure of merit value, and figure of merit value, if you substitute these two, you will get it as mu n divided by L square. You can just substitute and see what you are getting, because all the other terms will get cancelled, because VDD minus V in minus VT, mu and Cox will get cancelled, W will get cancelled, and remaining CH also will cancel. Mu and Cox will not get cancelled, only Cox will get cancelled. So F will be equal to mu n by L square. Right. So at least at this point, what we can say is what we understood is there is definitely a trade-off between speed and precision, but at least at this point we can say that is actually independent of the trade-off between the speed and precision is actually independent of the width of the MOSFET size or the switch width. I'll write it as independent of switch width and of the capacitor, whole capacitor. That is the one takeaway or one observation what we can make from the figure of merit definition, because figure of merit what we defined is to bring in both speed and precision together, and the desired value is high. And if you look at the figure of merit value, it is independent of the switch width as well as the whole value of the capacitor. At this point, we'll revisit this again. Right. So just to summarize, what we are doing is we are looking at the sampling switches precision consideration, and we stated that there are three mechanisms, and channel charge injection is the first thing, and I hope you understood that. Now let us quickly move to the second mechanism, that is called as clock feed through, or it is also called as capacitive feed through. Clock feed through or capacitive feed through mechanism. Right. So for that, again, I'm taking the reference of the same sampling switch of an NMOS switch and a capacitor here. So this is V in, this is V out, and this is the whole capacitor CH. Now towards the gate, you'll be applying a clock, and This is the clock. I am actually representing a real clock. That is why I have shown a fault time. Now, generally what happens is when the clock is high. So again, let us look in as two cases. See, when your clock is high, let me draw the parasitic or the capacitance here. I can actually see two capacitance. One is the capacitance between, say, if I'm marking this as source or drain, anyway you can write. If I'm marking this as source and drain, and let me mark the capacitance here, and this is the other capacitor. Right. Now, if you look at the left side, this is your gate and this is your drain. You have a CGD capacitance. On the other side, what you have is between gate and source. Right. So you can clearly see from the structure of the MOSFET, there will be gate to drain and gate to source capacitance, and these capacitance are identified as overlap capacitance. So because why this happens is because if you look at the structure of MOSFET, and whenever by the polysilicon, it's the polysilicon gate process, by the self-aligned process, when we make this MOSFET, you can see that the gate, and if this is the N plus region and this is N plus region, you will find that there will be a slight overlap here between the gate and source and gate and drain. So this will actually, in turn, this overlap is expressed in terms of overlap capacitance. And if you remember, this overlap capacitance is actually expressed as per width capacitance, where your oxide capacitance is actually expressed as unit area capacitance per unit area, where overlap capacitance is expressed as unit length capacitance, or it is expressed as per width. Right. So these capacitance are there, and for a real MOSFET there will be some overlap capacitance. But now when the clock is high, even though the clock signal is so whenever there is a signal here in the gate, and when there is an interaction between the gate and drain and the gate and source through this capacitance, what we are interested in is what is actually happening to the whole capacitor, or the sampled value in the whole capacitor CH. So our interest is actually on this side. Right. Now, even though the clock signal is feeding through the gate drain as well as gate source capacitance, whenever the switch is turned on, or when the clock is high, the switch is on, and whenever the switch is on, your output is connected to input. And what will happen when the switch is on? Your whole capacitance CH is connected to input. This is connected to Vin, and as a result, what happens? Your CH will charge up to Vin. So when I say up to Vin, again, including all the limitations over there. So whatever it is, even though there is a capacity, even though there is a feed through, or even there is a signal interaction through this capacitance, it will not affect the final sampled value, because the switch is turned on and the output is connected to input, and there is a path for the capacitor to get charged. Right. So I would say the feed through, why I'm calling this as feed through is, this is not the regular path. This is actually a feed through path coming from gate to the output. So feed through, I would write feed through has no effect on the final value of output voltage. Why? Because switch is closed and there is a path for the capacitance to charge from the output, right, from the input. Right. Are you guys with me? Are you listening to me? So this is when your clock is high. Are you guys with me? Can I get some response in the chat? Yes. Now, I'll tell you why I said that the feed through has no effect. We'll look at the voltage which is coming as a part of this feed through. Now, when your clock is low, when the clock signal goes low, what happens when the clock goes low? The switch is off. The switch is turned off. Right. Now, whenever the switch is turned off, now for the capacitance CH, there is no other signals that, or the capacitor CH will not be now charged to, or will not be charged to some other voltage, because now the CH capacitance is charged to some value. But now this, if you look at the clock signal is actually turning low, it is going from high to low. What happens here is, you can see there is a capacitive voltage divider is actually existing here, because this is your clock signal. You have a capacitance here, and you have another capacitance which is coming from here to here, which is, this is CH, and this you can actually consider as some overlap capacitance. Right. Now what happens, there will be a small, since there is a voltage available at the gate and there are two capacitance here, as there will be some voltage get dumped, or there will be some voltage injected to the whole capacitor as a result of the capacitive voltage division. Right. So I would say when the switch is off, there is a capacitive voltage divider. There is a capacitive voltage divider, and that is exists actually between gate drain and gate source capacitance and the load capacitance. So in turn, actually we should one second. Yeah, now I'm looking only at the gate terminal. Right. Now there is a capacitive voltage divider, and that this is actually existing between this gate drain, gate source, and the whole capacitance, whole capacitor CH. Right. Now can you tell me what will be the additional voltage coming to the whole capacitor as a result of this capacitive voltage division? Are there any answers for that? How will you write that voltage, delta V? So again, this is a small voltage which is coming to the whole capacitor. How will I write that is, since you have, let me write this as VDD. VDD is actually the clock voltage. So this is the VDD, or I'll write it as V clock for us to identify. So the delta V voltage will be through the capacity voltage division. So V clock will come as the overlap capacitance COV divided by COV plus CH. Roughly, if you write this, is so what is this basically? So this is actually a portion of clock signal appearing across this CH capacitance. Right. Now, to be very precise, how you should write this overlap capacitance is, since I told that we are usually expressing that as a unit width capacitance, if you want to write the exact expression, it is something like this. V clock into WCOV divided by WCOV plus CH. Right. Where we can say that COV is actually the capacitance per unit width. Right. So are you guys getting this point? So here the capacitive divider, or the capacitive divider, is actually giving an additional voltage as soon as the clock signal is actually turning off, and as soon as the clock signal goes from high to low and the switch is turning off. So when the switch is turning off, since the previous voltage is already there, now this is actually coming as an additional voltage, right? That is actually coming as some delta V, which is getting injected, or which is coming to the, which is getting dumped onto this whole capacitor. Is this clear? Can I get some response? Yeah. Now there are some mechanisms actually to solve even this, but one good part is this injection mechanism is not depending on the input signal, right? This is from the clock signal. So since it is not signal dependent, this will always come as a constant offset voltage. If you look at the input output CARA also, this will remain as a constant offset voltage, and such errors can be easily treated. Or if the error which is adding to a capacitor is constant throughout the cycle, that is something which is easy for us than compared to an error which is actually keep on coming, getting dumped on the capacitor, which is a signal dependent quantity, right? So I'll make a note here that this error delta V is independent of the input signal. This is independent of the input signal, and therefore a constant offset can be seen in the output cara. Seen in the input output characteristics. I hope it is clear, right? Now, through practical simulations, we'll see how we can actually reduce the capacitive feed-through mechanism. So maybe you can only suggest one way how you can, by looking at the delta V expression, what solution can you suggest? How can you reduce the charge injection? Sorry, this capacitive feed-through. Any guess? Yeah, reducing the width. Reducing the width. All right, it may, yeah, it can have some effect. Reduce V clock, okay. Reducing V clock, but still you will have a delta V component, right? Usually one thing what you observe is when you change the whole capacitance value, or it has a more dependence on the whole capacitance value. So we'll see in a practical simulation, when you use two different clock, the whole capacitance, when you use two different capacitance value, how the clock feed through mechanism is actually getting reduced, right? So this is what you should understand about the clock feed through mechanism, which is also contributing in the hold phase of a switch, sampling switch, right? Now coming to the last mechanism, that is something which you already know, which is actually identified as KT by C noise, which is getting added to the sampled voltage in the capacitor, right? So to talk about KT by C noise, probably you will remember when you have done your analog integrated circuit course, where you had studied about noise, which is the only course where you talk about circuit noise. So can you recollect when you have an RC filter? There we have solved it actually as a numerical, as a problem. Whenever you have an RC filter like this, do you remember what is the noise injected by this RC filter? Or how will you study the effect of noise of this RC component? Or why this RC component is important here? So if you look at an RC here, where you have an input and output connected in this form. So why I have taken this RC circuit here is because what you have here is also a switch and a capacitor. And what is a switch here? Switch is a MOSFET. And when MOSFET is on, MOSFET is actually in linear region of operation. So it is having an equivalent resistance R on, right? Now that is why I have an analogy of taking a RC circuit over here. Now, if you have an RC circuit, how will you find the noise contribution at the output side? So what we have done in your fourth semester is we have taken this R. So this is a noisy resistance. So this noisy resistance can be written as a noiseless resistance, and that noise component can be marked here as the Vn square bar or something, and then you will have the capacitance here as V out. Right. Now, if you consider this as a system, I hope this you have seen in your fourth semester, but I'm just reviewing that. If you consider this as a system where this is the input side and this is output side, I can write the transfer function of this system as V out by V in as, how will you write the transfer function V out by V in of this? What will be the transfer function of this particular circuit, V out by V in? Can I get some response in the chat? Yeah, it is 1 by 1 plus SRC, right? This is HFS. Now, we have also this formula with us. When you have the output spectral density, power spectral density is related to input power spectral density through this relation, the magnitude of h of f the whole square. I hope you remember this. Now, can you tell me what is the noise in a resistance? The noise, what is Vn square bar in this case? What is Vn square bar? The thermal noise of a resistance. Voltage, if I write in terms of voltage, it is actually 4 kTr. That is the thermal noise of a resistance. So I can write the output spectral density as 4 kTr, which is the input spectral density, multiplied by the magnitude square of this. So that becomes 1 by 1 plus j omega. Omega is 2 pi f, so it is 4 pi square f square r square into c square. Right. This is the output spectral density. All right. Now we are interested in writing. So what I want to know, or what I want to discuss in this particular course is what is the noise voltage coming and how the noise voltage is getting added to the sampled data system. Now for that, I'm just trying to get the noise voltage of an RC circuit. So if I continue this, I can write the total noise power at the output as, say, if I express it as some P and out, I need to integrate from 0 to infinity of this. What I have here is 4 kTr by this quantity. So 4 kTr divided by 1 plus 4 pi square f square r square and c square df. This I should do, right? And if I do this, so how can I do this? Maybe you can refer to the noise lectures of analog IC design, which is available in the channel. So what you can do is, if you integrate this will result actually in a term of kT by c, right? So you can try that. So you will get kT by c as here. So P and out is kT by c, which is the total noise power. So total noise power, if you look at the unit, it is actually volt square. Now if you want to express in terms of volt, since it is noise, what I am expressing is the total RMS noise voltage, if I want to express in terms of volt, and that will be under root of kT by c. That is actually measured at output. Right. Now, what is the importance of that? The discussion of this RC over here. What I have here as a sample and hold circuit is a MOSFET and a capacitance here, which is CH. This is input. And now MOSFET when it is on, or here in this case when it is acting as a switch, it will be in linear region. In linear region, the MOSFET will express some noise. That noise we are actually considering it as the MOSFET is acting as a resistor, and the thermal noise of MOSFET during linear region is actually considered. In that case, I can say at output I can actually add this voltage of kT by ch, which is actually getting added to this voltage will get actually added to the sampled signal in the capacitor. Right. So here MOSFET is in linear region, and this kT by ch noise is actually the noise of MOSFET in linear region. Right. Now, if you look at the noise voltage which is getting added at the output, again that depends on the capacitance value, right? Because say at room temperature, I'm looking at room temperature. At room temperature, say if I take 1 picofarad capacitance, that will give you an RMS noise of some certain value. If I calculate, it will come around 64 microvolt. But if I go for a much smaller capacitance, say 100 femtofarad, this noise voltage is actually going to increase. This will become 200 microvolt. Right. So one more takeaway what you can do here is, larger the capacitance, larger the CH value, that will actually give you small noise voltage from the relation what we have obtained now. Right. If you look at this expression, the output noise voltage is actually under root of kT by Ch. Now, when you have a larger Ch value, the noise voltage will be actually less. Like, so small noise voltage will be sampled onto the capacitance, onto the Ch, right? Now you can clearly see that there is actually a trade-off. Now, if I look for a low noise system, then I should actually use a larger capacitance. But if I look for a high speed system, I should actually go ahead with a smaller capacitance. That is actually from our previous discussion, right? So here actually you can see a trade-off between high speed and low noise. All right. Yeah, so this is actually our third mechanism third mechanism under the precision considerations, and it is very important to understand all these three mechanisms. Then only when you see an output, when you see a sample data output, you can actually look at the output waveform and comment, okay, what is happening and how clock feed through, or how your charge injection or your noise is actually getting added. All right, is this clear? Can I get some response from you guys? All right, is this clear so far? Is it clear?
Sir, I had doubt
Yes.
in that feed through, sir.
Yes,
So you
yes.
told feed through has no effect on the final output, right? But it has when the clock is high, but it has effect on speed, right?
Yeah, it has effect on the
Speed, the charging will be fast when there is two path to charge the CH capacitance.
no. Okay, so you are thinking that when your clock is high, there is two path through which the capacitor can charge. Is that what you meant?
Yes, sir.
No. So what is happening here is the sudden clock transition from the gate can be coupled to the output. Right. The other way, what you're seeing is actually a longer path where you have this capacitance and this capacitance, and there is so in whatever way you think, you have actually a straightforward path directly connected. Your input and output is directly shorted here. So when there is an easy path for charging, definitely this will be your active path.
Yes, sir.
And whatever charging happens, since your input and output are shorted together, your capacitor will be charging to this final value. So why I said that there is no effect on the final value is because even though a small delta V comes from the clock feed through during your clock is high, your final output is since your CH is connected to the input voltage, it will keep on charge and it will reach to that value. But now when it turns off, then what is coming is an additional thing as a delta V. That is what I meant by making the statement that the feed through has no effect on the final value.
Okay, sir. Got
Is
it, sir.
it clear, Nageshri?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So thank you so much. So what we do is today we will wind up here, and based on this, we can actually start with the simulation examples. So in the next class, I can